To all my HBAR holders, we have become complacent with this project. No, I'm not saying it's a bad project. I'm just saying the content in this video is going to outline some very important and looked over aspects of the network that we can also go ahead and apply to every other cryptocurrency. So this is mainly off the back of one of the videos I made about a week ago, and a lot of you were seriously concerned with HBAR and thought I was talking negatively about the project. So I'm here to confirm or deny some of those statements and get you guys on an even playing field, right? So let's begin by having a look at what this video is about. So as I said, we've become complacent with the altcoins that we buy because we're consistently told they're great from influencers, right? And obviously, what does this do, right? This blocks our critical thinking. If you're fed positive information 24/7, if you're told you have a great body and you don't, you're going to start to believe it sooner or later, aren't you? So it's the same damn thing in this situation. We're constantly fed that HBAR or even just other altcoins are great projects, but what I'm going to go to in just a second is going to open your mind. It's going to open you to a whole new level of research that's easy to do, by the way, but this is make or break for projects. Let me explain, right? So personally, and this is what everyone else at home should be doing, I hold no altcoin free from criticism, and so should you. Be pessimistic. I've heard people always say to me, Kyron, why are you so pessimistic with cryptocurrencies for? Don't be a pessimist like this guy. I'm telling you right now, it's the best thing to do as an investor. Don't hope for the best, okay? And as Warren Buffett once said, I'm going to keep repeating this damn same quote until we all make our millions, right? I never invest in anything I don't understand. As simple as that. We have to understand what we're investing in first, because if we don't, like you're going to see in just a second, all that time or energy on maybe money spent and obviously basic research and all this worrying and fear and FOMO and hype, it's all wasted. It's for nothing, right? So we have to understand, poke holes in the ship very carefully, especially on the projects that everyone keeps raving on about, because guys, I'm not going to lie to you, the people that are in the community saying, hey, buy this project, buy that project, guess what? It's a new damn industry. We've never really had an industry that combines technology, such as this, protocol level stuff, with economics like this as well, and also business models, right? It's a whole damn new industry. And so we have a lot of people that think they know what they're talking about that actually don't. And I might sound like one of them people, but I've openly admitted multiple times I am always learning. So it's very important, obviously, we get into the nitty gritty of everything. So HBAR, for those who don't know and are wondering, hey, is this guy going to start criticizing HBAR? Well, look, it's my number one holding for starters. And if you were to say to me, Kyron, what is your favorite layer one protocol? I would say HBAR without even hesitation. So for those who don't know, I love the project, but of course we have to poke holes in it. So what is this video about and why is it so important for us and so worrying, matter of fact, that people don't know this? All right, so let's work out if HBAR, particularly in this case, can benefit from market demand. What do I mean? Well, can a supply shock be achieved, right? So essentially, in human terms, can the price shoot up if we have a huge partnership, right? We don't want to have a situation like over here, Chainlink, and actually, matter of fact, a little bit like HBAR, I'm going to get to it in a second, where we have a massive partnership like Amazon, for example, and everyone's like, oh, wow, there's going to be so much demand coming in. There might be demand. Amazon might need the HBAR token very intimately at many different levels, but if that token isn't taken out of circulation, it's akin to me, taking some money out of Bitcoin, like buying 1 million Bitcoin, for example, and then putting it back in the next day. There's going to be a massive price shoot up and there's going to be a massive drop the next day. Okay, it's simple as that. So we have to find the mechanisms that will take it out, utility, and that will keep it out. And that's what drives demand and what's called a price shock that's going to shoot the price up, okay? All this will be explained in a lot more detail in a second, right? So this is going to be a very valuable lesson for you to learn and apply to all your altcoins for research. And if an altcoin lacks in this area, in my opinion, so this should be done before any other research, it's obviously going to be a very bad investment. So it's not worth your time even looking into other things like the team, partners, so on and so forth. If you're buying the one thing that obviously reflects the quality of the project and it's not reflecting it adequately, it's a bad investment. Simple as that, okay? So what I would actually tell you to do, keep in the back of your mind, if you found this video valuable towards the end, you need to share it with your friends and family. It's not going to benefit you or I to keep this information to ourselves. The more people know about this, the better. It's going to stop the big guys from screwing us over, right? So what do I mean by market demand and supply shock? Well, let me give you some examples so that everyone's on the same playing field, right? So in this, again, this is a hypothetical example. I'm going to use numbers in this case and situations that aren't actually true, but I'm applying it to HBAR, okay? So if Amazon wants to plug in essentially to HBAR and use its services like the public or private infrastructure or network, well, what does it have to do? It needs HBAR, okay? So we then have to figure out how the HBAR token will be needed by Amazon, right? So in these hypothetical examples, it might be needed in two different situations, right? It might have to do a licensing thing, right? Where it has to pay the Hashgraph for the Hashgraph technology itself for the consensus service, which is like the enterprise service. And that might be calculated on a few different things, right? So how many employees Amazon has and the estimated monthly traffic Amazon thinks it needs. And what happens then? Well, maybe, for example, Amazon has to pay for this in USD, or they can, buy HBAR, but it is always converted back into HBAR and locked up for the time that they actually need the service, right? Or also, on the public side of things, so they might have to pull data from the network, like smart contracts, to better their own services in some capacity. They pay per transaction, for example, which is billed monthly, but only payable in USD, okay? So the question we have to ask ourselves at this stage, and this is gonna make more sense in a second, is what mechanisms take the token out of circulation? So the arms here, what is that? How is that HBAR getting out of circulation? And then the next is, where will it be then delivered to? So it's one thing to take the token out of circulation, but again, where does it go to? So for example, with the licensing fee example, HBAR is delivered to the treasury, deposited into account 800, and then dispersed each week to stakers. So it's being taken out of circulation, cool. But every single week, it's then put back into circulation and given to the stakers on the network, which can then sell those tokens, of course, and they're back in circulation again. So there's a little life cycle here, right? And on the other side of it, right, the public network data, well, obviously those USD tokens don't require, obviously over here, right, payable in USD only. So they're just sent to the HBAR Foundation and given to the team, right? So in this hypothetical example, let me reiterate hypothetical, horrible token capture is happening here. Why? There is a lot of potential market demand from Amazon in this case, right? Amazon's a huge company, which is being absorbed by two types of utility. So utility are mechanisms, right? So people just say utility, I say mechanisms. However, the delivery of these tokens is horrible, which is the most important aspect. HBAR is going straight back into circulation, or isn't even being absorbed in the first place, like with these USD fees. So again, with the licensing fee example, they're just being sent straight back into circulation, a week later. Now, in this case, there's a lot of variables that go to play, right? So for example, if they are taken back out of circulation, and sent to the stakers, those stakers might want to hold those tokens for a period of time, but they're liquid, so they can just sell them at any point in time. But the worst thing, right, the absolute worst case is this, right? So they're not even extracting HBAR from the market at all. It's just USD, right? But again, hypothetical, that actually isn't happening. So moral of the story, this is very important. It doesn't matter how much utility a project has, if the token is not delivered out of supply for a period of time, ideally again forever, then you are holding a token that will only move from speculation purchases. What you have is a true, every sense of the word, utility token, okay? So ultimately, let me just kind of summarize here before we get into like the HBAR example. I actually had a comment on my last video talking about this sort of thing, saying I was, end quote, stupid, because he claimed rather more utility equals the more the price goes up. So the more mechanisms to get those tokens out of circulation, the better. If there's 100 different ways, that's really good. Well, he's wrong, and he's very, very wrong. This is a dangerous mindset to uphold, okay? So utility is, again, the mechanism, but where are those tokens going? So if those tokens are going straight back into circulation, then how can you claim there's going to be positive price movement? So if these are the tokens in circulation, right, and what this guy is saying is, if you have, let's just say 100 different, and by the way, the boxes here are, forms of mechanisms or utility, to take the tokens out of circulation, you might have 100. But if these tokens are then being sent all the way back into circulation, literally like 1 day later, then this doesn't matter, right? The mechanisms don't matter. We're looking for mechanisms that keep them out of circulation for as long as possible or forever, okay? So it doesn't matter how much utility it's got going on. Very important, right? And let me give you another example with Bitcoin here. I know I mentioned this at the start of the video, but again, there might be a temporary supply shock. If I bought 1 million Bitcoins today, the price is going to, skyrocket from that supply shock. But tomorrow, if I was to withdraw and sell those tokens in like a vacuum, that's just going to put the price back down a level again. Obviously in a vacuum, right? That's not going to exactly happen. There's going to be panic and stuff. But again, give me the benefit of the doubt here. It's just going to move the price in the same bloody way. Okay, so again, we're looking for keep them out of circulation permanently, ideally, right? So if the token is purely a utility, then it is not good. We want a store of value. Don't be one of these people that think more utility is good. Again, we're looking for those delivery mechanisms. How can it stay out, all right? So if you're still watching, again, I want to remind you, please send this to 1 or 2 or 3 friends or family people need to know this. It's no benefit for us to hold on to this information, okay? So let's actually analyze HBAR. Now, I want to just very quickly, the time is running out on this video, and there's not too much to talk about because it's a layer 1, which is beautiful. Let me explain. So this is sort of the mechanisms that we need to follow, right? There's this little sort of waterfall effect. We have to firstly find the adoption, right? Where's the network use coming from? Where's the potential demand even starting from? Well, we have things like the public network, private network instances, right? We have consensus nodes, we have the applications building on HBAR itself, and mirror nodes, right? Now, I've kind of added mirror nodes in here as a good example for something I'll tell you in a second, right? So this is things like private network, things like this could be Amazon, for example, Microsoft. A public network could be things like dApps, for example. So all I'm saying here is we're looking for things that are going to actually be the reason why HBAR has demand for it anyway, right? Then the next thing you have to do is find the mechanisms that are going to absorb this sort of demand or this traffic, right? So there's things like, okay, well, if it's public network, it might be transaction fees. Private network, well, you know, spoiler alert, HBAR has none. Consensus node staking, so what is that? Just staking or bonding, right? Or layer 2 or dApps, what do these guys have? Well, they have utility themselves and so on and so forth. So we have to find, again, what the utility actually is. Now, Hedera is different because it's a layer 1 network, so most of it's going to come from transaction fees, but networks like Quant, they have a whole host of different cool little sort of things that allow the token to be used for. Transaction fees, bonding, staking, gateway nodes, bonding for applications, things like that. So we have to look at these different things. And then, again, most importantly, token delivery. So it's all good getting your token, you know, your transaction fees, but then where are they going to? Are they going to be out of circulation for a long time, for a short period of time, or forever? And so in this case, as you can see, HBAR sends all of these transaction fees to the nodes, at least right now. Private network actually, to interact with the public network, again, it goes to the public fees as well. And actually, what I found quite interesting was they actually don't need to, you know, bond any tokens like I initially thought. So to run a private network, that's it. You can just run a private network. It's pretty cool, right? And then so with the consensus node staking, obviously the mechanism is staking itself. There's no bonding, which is pretty interesting, right? So you don't bond tokens for a period of time. And guess what? There is staking, but it's 100% liquid. There's no, you know, lockup time. So in that case, that's the mechanism, right? There's no lockup time. It's 100% liquid. So what is similar with the consensus node staking and the public network? Well, guess what? They're temporarily removed from supply. So tokens aren't likely to be sold, but they're liquid. So what does this mean? Well, again, they're going to pretty much to the nodes, right? And to people who are staking for profit, essentially for any entity that's kind of staking their tokens for a period of time for profit. They obviously want to compound that because they're getting more rewards. So they're less incentivized to sell, but they're liquid. They're fully liquid, so they can sell whenever they want. This is like, there's like a big gray area. There's like burning, which is like permanently out of circulation. And there's like the USD or like doesn't even use the token at all, right? There's a big gray area here. And so this falls in the gray area, right? Because they can, again, sell their tokens whenever they want, but they're incentivized not to. So we don't really know for sure. It's ranges in that category, okay? And then we have like layer 2/dApps. So this is the most important thing on the network besides the transaction fees, because as layer 1, you're providing infrastructure for whatever builds on top of you, layer 2 applications, side chains, right? Or dApps, right? So it's untraceable. We don't actually know what's going to be done here because essentially HBAR is required within the ecosystem for any and all types of transactions, bonding, staking, lockups, and things like liquidity pools, right? So that's one thing to consider. So these tokens are taken out of circulation as well, but unless they're like permanently burned in some way, shape, or form within the application itself, then they aren't actually, you know, forever taken out of circulation. Now, I wanted to add this because I actually found this researching for this video. Mirror nodes can just pretty much spin up for free. You don't have to pay at all. They just literally pay for the software itself and Bob's your uncle, right? There's no like fee HBAR charges for that, which is interesting. I thought I would share that. And the good thing to remember here is, guys, look, adding extra utility again means nothing. We're trying to find this, right? How these tokens being taken out of circulation. So all in all, not to spend too much time on this, Hedera has a fantastic target market with tons of potential demand, and you can find this through things like the website homepage, right, where their target markets are, or YouTube videos as well. We've got a pretty good idea of who they're targeting, and also the mechanisms, right? So Hedera has an average mechanism to remove tokens from supply, either again temporarily or permanently. There's no actual permanent ways right now, and these mechanisms are adequate for absorbing demand, right, at the layer 1 level. So it will depend on different projects. Like if you compare Quant to HBAR's, you know, token absorption and delivery, it's horrible, right? It's horrible, but it all does depend obviously on what type of project it is, okay? So the best way you can find this sort of stuff is from the website itself under the token page, or just anything from the horse's mouth, like directly from the project. And again, so the mechanisms as well. So it's always hard to say with layer 1 networks, as most of the demand for the native token will come from the ecosystem and then for fees, okay? So it's kind of hard for us to track, but it is so important for us to assess if an ecosystem is lacking. But it obviously is super important for us to assess, because if an ecosystem is lacking and there are no adequate mechanisms to remove the tokens from supply, i.e. other things apart from obviously the mechanism for the ecosystem itself, then obviously it's bad, right? The network's dying. It's not good for the future of the network, right? So as of right now, the delivery of HBAR is okay, as the nodes won't be selling their tokens because they're, governing council operated. And thanks to Hedera's fixed supply, there's a natural deflationary mechanism thanks to lost accounts and so on and so forth, okay? So all in all, this actually came from the HBAR's website themselves, which is pretty interesting. And this kind of covers a little bit about what we're doing now. So you'll be able to find all the information, what we're talking about today from the project's website, if they're, very transparent, which is very important to look over. So of course, this is all minus inflation. So if the project had inflation, for example, right, so we might have all this great demand, but it might just bounce straight back, okay? Because the inflation might make that obsolete. But sometimes, obviously, if there's no inflation, if it's a fixed supply like HBAR, or they, eventually get to a point where they can eclipse the inflation, well, then obviously it can begin to find its demand again, and therefore you're taking tokens out of circulation forever or for a period of time. Therefore, the price will appreciate over time, okay? So again, inflation can kill a well-rounded mechanism, but likewise, inflation can be subdued or completely irrelevant if there is a strong mechanism plus delivery options. So this kind of goes over a little bit about the different mechanisms in place. You got to worry about vesting, which are just tokens unlocking from, pre-mined tokens, emissions from, block rewards, for example, or from mining and things like that. You got periodic unlocks as well, so unlocks that occur from specialized product or services that the project offers itself, or just mechanisms as well. So protocol mechanisms that create supply from tasks, like in VeChain, you hold on the VET token and it generates every day passively the VTHO token. All right. So a good example of this is another layer 1 network called Near Protocol that has a 5% inflation rate, which means it is inflationary, but they have a 70% burn fee on each transaction. Therefore, it will become deflationary eventually and, put positive price action or pressure on the network, which will then shoot the price up. You're taking tokens out of circulation forever, but that's going to require 1.5 billion transactions per day, aka 17,000 TPS sustained over a 24-hour period. So, guys, you're here for my HBAR opinion. All in all, it's a great network. It's doing what it needs to do for a layer 1. There's no concerns to be had here. Yes, it isn't amazing. I would have liked a burn mechanism like obviously Near Protocol, but it's actually healthy for HBAR because Near has that inflation rate to offset, right? Because you imagine HBAR being used all over the world where it's intended to be used, and it's pretty quickly going to, obviously, if it had a burn mechanism, soak up all that tokens, and therefore it's unviable to actually run the network at all. So it's good. It makes sense. As a layer 1 network, it's as probably good as going to get. So guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you have learned something valuable, I would appreciate a like. And if you want more daily content like this, make sure you're subscribed. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.